Is watching YouTube having a negative effect on you as a person, as a spiritual practitioner, and just an overall feeling that it's not exactly great for you? In this podcast episode, we explore exactly that. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Sacred Gates here on YouTube. My name is Illura. And today we are exploring YouTube, and not just YouTube, but social media in general. Although YouTube is highly addictive, as are other platforms, it's also hugely vast in the kinds of topics we can look at. There's something for everybody. Same goes for other platforms as well. There's a group for every interest, or there's a kind of channel for everyone's interest, which makes it not just a select group of people or select groups of people that are affected by it, but it is able to kind of find its way into everybody's life and day. I wanted to bring this up because I recently just put the newsletter out. It was about looking at my own habits with YouTube. Back in 2022, I actually made the decision to really change my usage of it. I was very late to getting a smartphone in my life. I only have had a smartphone, I think, for 3 years now, two and a half years I've had a smartphone. But before that, I had what I called a dumb phone, which was great, really, compared to a smartphone. A lot less, things you can do on it, but it was just a phone and texting. And I found I held off from putting YouTube because I didn't really like the feeling of it being on a phone. I wasn't used to it. But eventually I got into putting YouTube on my phone because I could listen to music while I cooked dinner. And then it kind of gravitated into sometimes watching YouTube, while I eat lunch. And then after a while I noticed that when I would menstruate, I would find myself kind of watching more YouTube as a way just to kind of feel nourished. And I just started to notice that my intake of YouTube had gone up. And I've definitely found that I had to make a decision about it, because if you've noticed yourself, and if you are a meditator, I'm sure if you're paying attention, if you watch a YouTube video, especially one that is not related to your goals as a spiritual person, it's not related to anything that's in alignment with spiritual energy or meditation or anything helpful in that way, and you watch a YouTube video, just say, and then you sit for meditation, you will feel all of the images and the energy and the resonances coming through at different times in your meditation. Maybe it's just at the beginning, or maybe it comes in and out of your practice. This is a real thing that's actually happening to you, because when we watch pictures, we actually store images in our aura. Some people can actually see them. For example, I recently had a while ago now, I did a course in gua sha. Someone taught me how to do gua sha. And when I met the woman, I could feel nature all in her aura. And I asked her if she lived out in nature. And she said, yeah, I live very far from the city in nature on a farm. And so we can pick up on things in people's auras, whether we see them visually, or we see them, or we smell them, or we hear them, or we know them. Feeling is always, clairsentience is always the core, channel for sensing, but we can sense it in through the other senses as well, like hearing and seeing, seeing and smelling, etc. But feeling is the ultimate pathway, really, for the gateway. And so when we watch a YouTube video, no matter what it is, whether it's positive or negative, however we interpret it, whatever effect it has on us, we're not only storing the images in our aura, in our emotional body, and just in generally in our aura, the resonance goes into us, goes into our mind, and the vibrations of that content comes through our practice. And I had a really interesting experience recently. I was with my son and we went to a local burger place to get a really good burger. And while he was upstairs setting stuff up on the rooftop with his burger place, I talked and ordered downstairs with a young woman. And she was on her phone, and I said to her, I said something like, oh yeah, the phones, it's you're watching YouTube. She goes, yeah, I'm watching TikTok, and which I've never gone on. I got to say, I very much want to stay away from that. And she said, and I said, I don't know what I said. I said something like, oh yeah, I really noticed that It's very addictive. And she looked at me in such a shock. Now, I live in Southeast Asia, and I don't think people generally talk a lot about these kinds of things necessarily. Mental health is not commonly discussed openly at all like it is in the West. In the West, mental health issues are a lot more normalized. They're a lot more common, or people know them to be more common. There's a lot of avenues to be able to talk about them. You can get support, financial benefits from the government for having mental issues, or there's just a lot more support and openness about it. But in Southeast Asia, it's slowly coming, but there's still a lot of shame and secrecy around it. So she was really surprised. She was shocked in a good way. And then I went on to say gently, I said, oh yeah, I have noticed in the past that, if I watched a video and then I went and meditated, then, all this stuff would come out. And she was like, oh my God, really? And she said, yeah, I just scroll all day. It's very common in the country I live in, young people who had kind of got a job where they wait a lot. They're just on their phone scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, or playing computer games, I've even seen people playing computer games while riding a motorbike. So it's very, very addictive. And she was blown away. She couldn't believe I'd said it. And I'd said it really nicely, just as a passing observation, but it really hit her. So sometimes we don't realize the effects of YouTube, for example, or other social media platforms. And what happened in 2022 is I took a break for a while from YouTube. I wasn't on it all the time, but I was on it more than I liked to be on it for myself. And I took a break. And then one night I was having dinner on my own. Everyone else was out in my family. And I thought, it'd be nice to just kind of feel a bit lonely. So I sat and watched a video on my phone. And I hadn't watched YouTube in a long time. I had to upload it again, reinstall it. And I felt YouTube hit my aura. And that's what really got me interested more and more in the effects of social media and media in general worldwide. And I felt it hit my aura, and I felt all these streams open back up it felt heavy, it felt dense, it felt anxious, actually. It felt sad, it felt overwhelmed and burdened, and definitely a sense of burden and anxiety. And the videos that had come up were of women talking about beauty things and different stuff like that. And just looking at the thumbnails, I could feel my reaction physiologically to the thumbnails. And I could feel a sense of opening up to the stream of chaos and destruction. But I believe and know in my heart that media is the core of so much of the pain that we have in this world. And I do believe that so many, especially with the news-orientated political kinds of videos streaming, and there are so many now. Have you noticed how many more interviews, like long interviews there are now, like over an hour and like even 2 hours, and they're very interesting intellectual people talking very interesting, and a lot of it I agree with even, but there's just so much drenching and saturating our minds at a finger's touch. And so much of, even if you're watching a video that you agree with and it's in a way like a fight against the fight, it's still affecting you. Even if you agree with it, it's still going to get you down. And I found that before I made this decision that I was feeling a bit down. I was feeling sad. I was feeling depressed. I was feeling like this weight of the world, and it wasn't from my life, like my actual life, but it was very much in me and a part of me. And I wanted to do this podcast on this specifically because I do feel that a lot of people we're very visually orientated. Even before YouTube was invented, I was still very video orientated. I would prefer to watch a video documentary about something than read about it. So I think a lot of us are very visually orientated. And so videos are very appealing. And it just really could feel it. When I sat down at the dinner on my own, I could feel it hit me. And I thought, oh, wow, this is what I've been missing out on, as in I haven't had to deal with this because I stopped watching it. And so I found that actually, for me, it's better to use YouTube sometimes as entertainment, but also just to look up educational videos on things that I want to learn. So, for example, I recently looked into how to take better care of my hair using oils, something I didn't know about. And I'd also been looking into kefir, how to make kefir, which is fantastic, by the way. I really enjoy it, milk kefir. So for me, it felt positive. But even then, you can go overboard and watch more than one. Or, of course, go off and on other tangents. Like you'll read in the comments in YouTube, like, how did I get here watching this? It's like what they call like a rabbit hole. So just wanted to kind of bring this up, especially if you are a meditator, which I hope you are, and just to be careful. If you're going to do a sit, don't look at your phone, or don't even look at your phone, but don't look at YouTube especially, or other things like Facebook or whatever it might be, or TikTok, or even what's it called, Instagram, before you meditate. And you probably, if you go in deep and allow yourself to really surrender to your practice, you probably won't feel like doing it after. But there may be a part of you that is strong, has that inertia, and will not be able to help itself to do that. So one thing you can do is just say, if you are accessing your phone and that's how you're using YouTube and these other platforms, you can actually just disable them so they're not always on your phone. It's not difficult, of course, to enable those apps, but it does create a way for you not have to do it. I also don't have Wi-Fi everywhere. I only have Wi-Fi at my house, which I prefer. And there are some hotspots around town that I use if I go to a cafe I'm familiar with, and I have it there. And part of that is for me, but it's also just so my son doesn't get used to having, he doesn't touch my phone really, but so he doesn't just get used to it always being there. So we if we're out together, hanging out together, rather than this whole phone addiction thing going on that we see with a lot of children and families. So I just wanted to touch base with you about that, to invite and encourage you to look at your usage. For me, it was YouTube that I had to kind of look at, but just look at how, really be careful, and that in this world, so much of the dark energy is absolutely coming through the media. And I really can see, from having spent time on YouTube and all the topics and the crazy stuff that people are believing, I'm really seeing that the media is really, there's a deep desire in the darkness within the media to cause disruption between us, to cause chaos, and to cause humans not to see each other with care and similarity and sacredness anymore. That there's a real need for there to be like derision between us. And I find that the more, if you're really into watching this political, especially woke type of topics on YouTube, you'll find that there's so much derision, there's so much, hate and distance that is growing between people. And I find that the more you watch it, the more whatever parts of your brain waves can tap into that are tapping into that. And it's not something that I think that is a good thing to support and to log into. And just by watching it, you do give that some energy. One thing that you can also do is, choose which topics you do want to stay abreast of. For example, things to do with banking are of interest. They're not really of interest to me, but it's something that is relevant to me. Things going on with banking. There's a lot of changes happening in banking, but also other things you might like to do is just read if you can do this, is just to read the headlines, and you get a sense of the map, because there are people I've met that have declared that they're not watching the news at all. They're done with it. They don't want to tap into it. I personally feel that that's not always a good choice for me, because I want to stay on top of the map of what's going on with the light and the dark. It's just that it's very, it's the media and technology's made it very, very easy to get very drowning in that. So I do think it's good to stay abreast personally of things that are going on, and one way you can do that is just to read the actual titles, so you can stay abreast without actually having to watch them. And then you actually just pick and choose exactly what you'd like to watch, whether it's a little bit of entertainment or a little bit of how to do this, I'm interested in this, and then other things like watching titles of videos to see where things are going. That does require some self-control, but what you want to do is, after you've watched something that you are cottoning onto or know deep down is not good for you, feel how you feel after you've watched it. It can really bring you down. And sometimes you might say, why am I actually watching this? So just an invitation to rethink, to relook at your usage of YouTube in particular, but also other video platforms like TikTok. And I'm not sure if Instagram's got pictures, or is it just photos, or is it also video? I imagine video's found its way on there perhaps. But just to be super, super careful of what you absorb and not to underestimate. For example, I'm not going to tell you because it's a bit upsetting, but I watched a video of an animal rescue video, and something had been done to the cat by someone, and the cat had survived it. But it was really upsetting, and I didn't know that I was going to see this particular thing, and it really struck me in my heart. And I was in entertainment mode of watching YouTube, and I had taken a little bit of time just to do that, to take a break. And I think it was at a meal time again. And then after, I met my son, and I found myself snap at him, and I reflected why after I apologized, and I realized it was because of the stress of seeing an animal having gone through that. It's just not to underestimate the stuff that can just show up, especially if you have children. Must be very, very, very careful of what they are watching. So, fellow practitioner, just wanted to check in with you about that. I made a decision over a year ago to really make a choice conscientiously about that stuff, and it's made a difference for me. So I hope that it's something that you will have a little look at if you haven't already, and just become more aware of how the streams of consciousness and how the dark really does come through the media, and to protect yourself from that. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to receive a healing or a series of healings, please contact us. We are at the www.thesacredgates.com. Just email us, and you can also check in on the services that we provide. At the moment, we have a great discount for you to receive 12 months of continual alignment to something that you desire. So we basically help you to manifest what it is that you would like in your life. It is really great setup that we have for you, and we work behind the scenes to help you stay aligned to your desire. And we have a lot of different ways of helping you with that are in alignment with the Tayshara lineage and the principles of softening. We give you regular updates on how you're progressing, and over a year you can really, alter and change that in alignment with your practice or in alignment with what you need on your spiritual path. And we help you to manifest that and align to attract that in your life. So make sure you check that out. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye for now.